That didn't work at first. So today, buyer side commissions under pressure in this hot seller's market. How to never leave your commission up to a seller's agent again.
Yes. I mean, we started down this topic because you were reading threads in different Facebook groups, and people are complaining, and I've read several as well. They're like, man, this agent's only offering this, that agent's only offering that. And I mean, even in our little local Facebook group in Springfield, which I'm a part of, it's how is that clear cooperation? How is that whatever the specific terms are? And I feel for those agents. I feel for them because they think that they have to leave their commission up to the seller's agent, right? Like I would never leave the price that I got paid up to somebody else in a real estate transaction on the buy side or the sell side, right? Like it's not what somebody else thinks you're worth. It's what you are worth, and it's what you can negotiate. And so, lots of little tricks that you can do there to change the outcome of that. I think that I was talking to a friend yesterday. He's like, man, he said it's weird because it's the hottest real estate market ever. He's like, you read all of the stats, you hear all of the numbers, right? Like several big brokerages just came out with their earnings. Earnings are through the roof for these brokerages, but a lot of agents are feeling this crunch, and they're like, what is going on? Why is there such a discrepancy and disparity between what I'm reading and what I'm experiencing? And a lot of that can be changed with changing your skill set to change the outcome. So before we get into the tactics on how to make sure that you never really leave your commission up to somebody else again, I just want to address that, because he's like, I'm talking to people, and this guy is a real estate coach, and he's like, I'm talking to people, and people are hurting out here, man. He's like, is that what you're hearing? And I'm like, yeah, not really. I mean, you probably know better than I. What are your thoughts on that?
It's weird because I saw someone post like, not many agents are like, how many agents are not going to make it through this really hot market? And I was just thinking how much of a conundrum that was. You know what I mean? Like, really hot market, how many agents aren't going to make it? And I think it's just from having conversations, like there's a lot of frustration when you are 100% buyer heavy right now. Because
not just buyer heavy, Jake. Like if your entire business model is built on things that you're like unaware of as far as how you're going to get the business. I mean, that is what causes that pain and frustration. If you don't know, you know what I mean? So like maybe you get sellers sometimes, maybe you get buyers sometimes. Generally, it all works out in the wash. You make a good, reasonable income, right? But what happens, and what's happened to us, what's happened to me, what's happened to businesses that I've been involved in the past. I was also thinking last night, my entire career, the only thing I've ever really done is take advertising dollars and turn it into money. You know what I mean? Like as far as income, I mean, seriously, like I applied in real estate business, I applied in mortgage business, I applied in this business. I mean, that's all I've done to generate income. Now that doesn't create wealth necessarily, but that's a whole other topic. Right. Generating income and cash flow is very important for your business. But where were we, Jake? I'm losing my track of thought. I'm sorry.
So we were just talking. You were going down the path of like, you went down. In advertising. But we were talking about buyer heavy versus.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So on that side, you know what I mean? Yeah. If you do tend to like find more buyers right now than you're finding sellers, you're probably feeling this frustration, right?
And it's like so sometimes I have these conversations with just salespeople in general quite a bit, including our own mainly. That like sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier for other people, like even in your office, right? And it's always a numbers game, but things change, market conditions change with real estate. So how much effort you have to put in, it's not like your goal should change, right? It should just be like if before on average it was like 20 hours of work to get a buyer deal closed. Now it might be 35 hours, right? Might be 30.
Yeah, to an extent. So here's what happened to me in the recession. I'm gonna do a live on this later. But I was looking externally for the answer, and I was looking at all these outside influences, and I was like, okay, it's the market, okay, it's the recession, okay, it's the this, it's the that, and a lot of people are probably doing that right now in the real estate space, especially again if you don't have systems to bring you in consistent business, and you just can't kind of happen into buyers and sellers. You do prospecting activities, but you're not disciplined with them. You don't do them on a regular basis. You do them when you need to, more like have to, right? And this is my wife pinging me here. Let me shut this off. And so, what happens in that situation is you start to look externally as far as the answer, and then you start to make excuses, and then you start to create. I read something the other day, an alternate reality in your thought process of what could happen, right? So like if you're sitting there thinking, this thing won't let me shut it off. If you're sitting there thinking, what am I going to do, or how is this going to end up? Here's what you need to consider. Number one, see it as it is, not worse than it is, right? That's what Tony Robbins says. What I did during that time when I had my head buried in the sand, and I was literally like thinking about stocking up on canned goods in the recession, right? I'm like, maybe I should buy some food or something. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? I started to look at the numbers. I started to look at the numbers in the real estate space that I was in. And what I noticed is like, there are still plenty of transactions happening. Still plenty of business out there. I'm just sitting here crying the blues, woe is me, right? Instead of being proactive and trying to do something about it to change my outcome. And so that's why we wanted to go down this path. That's why we wanted to talk about this topic, because you can change the outcome on every front. You can change the outcome of what you're going to get paid on a listing. If some savvy listing agent, let me tell you something, they're not your enemy, decides to put out a lower commission because he knows that there's a lot of rookie agents out there right now that'll just go for it. They'll just take the short money, and guess what? They're getting what they're worth in that situation. They're getting what they deserve, right? Now, I know I'm going to get some pushback for that. So let me clarify and explain, because I used to do the same thing. I would give a lower commission. I wouldn't give it a 50-50 split on my list side, right? I'd charge 7, I'd pay out 3, right? If I was charging 6, I'd pay out 2.5. You know what I mean? And like agents would get mad, and I'd be like, don't get mad. Let me just show you how I did this. But if you look at the commissions, the transactions that are occurring in your market, and you find, right, like there are still deals out there, and there's plenty of them, and there are people who are having a lot of success in this market. You got to ask yourself and look internally, what could I do to change the outcome, right? And then you got to look at the different things that you have in your power to change the outcome, right? Before you go and start blaming other people like a listing agent or the economy or the seller's market or Corona or COVID or all these external things. We always got all these external excuses. It's a wonderful thing to be able to put it on something else, right? Especially when all these valid extra excuses out there. But what you should be doing is looking at how you can change the tactic. And if I was buyer heavy right now, I'd be looking to change my marketing over to more sellers. Well, how do you do that? Well, that's where you begin, by asking that question, right? Asking those questions, starting to seek those answers. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and voila, now you've got a strategy, right? Now you've got some hope. Now you've got something that you can move towards. And I think that is the wonderful thing about business. I saw a post from Stuman the other day. He said, sales is a lifelong, did you see this? Sales is a lifelong self-improvement course with a pay plan attached to it. And I was like, oh, I love that, dude, because it's so true. It's a wonderful thing about real estate. It's a wonderful thing about sales in general. Like, you have a lot of ability to improve, and the market makes you. It either makes you or chews you up and spits you out,
So true.
Yeah.
It is so true. And so for you, right, you working with a buyer.
Yes.
In your market, you see a house that they really love, and you look down and see it says 1.5%.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done to mitigate that to make sure that you are paid what you're worth?
You want me to close that loop? I was just going to leave it open for a while longer.
Nope.
Tonight on the news.
After this commercial.
Eminent death. But first, the cat in the tree. All right. I mean, that's how it works, right? That's what we do. We do it to you too. You guys should do it if you're creating content. It's called opening loops, and I'll just open several of them on this so that we can keep you engaged. All right, but listen. So what I would do is, number one, if you back up to the beginning of the relationship with that agent, right? You should have a benefit of doing business with you if not at least in a presentation form, in a spiel that you give them that talks about how you're going to do better for them, right, than the competition. And so this is a formula called create the problem, antagonize the problem, and then provide the solution. The problem is every other competitor out there that you have in the real estate business, right? You antagonize that problem, right? Like most agents aren't going to tell you, out of the gate what I'm telling you right now, right? They're not going to give you this talk because it's not an easy talk because you might reject me. But the truth is, here's the broker disclosure form in the state of Missouri, right? In order for me to represent you and not the seller, we have to have something in writing, and that's an agreement that says I can represent you. Now, the cool thing about that is that gives you the autonomy to be able to look at more homes because I can represent you on for sale by owners. I can represent you on this. I can represent you on that. So the key is getting that up front in writing as far as the amount of money you're going to get when you work with this client. And let me tell you something. For the people who are fearful of that right now, what's the buyer's biggest problem in the market? It's inventory, right? So if you're talking about how you're going to open up more inventory, how you're going to go turn over rocks in your market, right? How you're going to do whatever it takes to find them the house that they want, that they've been failing at being able to find, they're going to be more apt now to sign with you than they have been in the past. Would you agree with that, Jake?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So you should have a buyer's presentation on the benefits of doing business with you. Again, even if it's just a spiel, like is short as what I mentioned, right? Talking about how the seller's agent represents the seller. If you say to them, for example, I love the house in this market, I would pay, $10,000 over the asking price. They're obligated to go back and tell the seller that, right? So showing them the difference between fiduciary duties, showing them how a buyer's agent represents them, and telling them about how you're going to be able to help them find more inventory than they can find on their own, because obviously you're in the business. It's what you do every day. You're looking at these things. You're looking at new homes that come on the market. You're looking at for sale by owners. You got pocket inventory, maybe not pocket inventory. You've got sellers that you've talked to in the past, right, that are going to sell in the future, that aren't quite ready yet, that you can make phone calls to. There's a lot of ways to entice somebody to influence them in a positive manner to get that agreement in place. And so the next thing in that regard is, don't write your commission in on the buyer's agent's agreement when you're sitting in front of them. Like, have it pre-typed in there, right? And I've said that about listing commissions. I've said that about everything else. Don't not explain it to them, right? Don't be shysty. I mean, but hey, our fee is half the typical commissions, 3.5%. The good news is the seller generally pays that. If for some reason I'm representing you on something that is not the case, I will ask the seller to pay for it in the closing costs, which is very difficult to negotiate. I'm aware right now. But here's the deal. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And if you don't have a system for getting these type of agreements in place, if you don't have a system up front for communicating the benefits of doing business with you, then you're just a commodity. And all you're doing is opening doors for them. And guess what? The moment you're not available to open a door for them, they call the next guy or the next gal, right? They call the listing agent. They just don't see any differentiation between you and everybody else that's out there. So decommoditizing yourself in the beginning of the relationship is very important. And again, 3/4 of most buyers will do business with the first agent they eat. I was going to say eat. They meet, right? Let's hope there's no cannibalism going on in the market right now, literally. But in all seriousness, I'm only human. I misspeak sometimes. But in all seriousness, that's what you do. And so you got that agreement up front, right? And, I can't imagine not taking the shot and at least attempting to get the extra commission. I always tell people, like, look, if it comes down to it, I'm not going to stand in the way between you and your house. Like, I want to get the deal just like you do. So if I have to negotiate on that, I will, right? But I don't want to start from a position of, what's the term? I used a decent adjective in the past, but essentially weakness, right?
Yep.
Yeah. A deferred.
It's amazing, that idea of missing every shot you don't take, right? And it's worth at least taking the shot. And it's like, transaction fees or admin fees or however you have to position it in your market too. Like, I've talked to so many people over the years, so like, I know, especially when you start doing some serious production, like that is a lot of money. And like, you have more overhead and stuff typically, so it's not that hard to discuss and very rarely even gets brought up as any kind of issue for anybody. But it's like the idea of a problem in our head constantly keeps us from doing things that we know probably we should do, right? But it's like, okay, it's going down that path, right? Where it's like, I think this might happen. So then what if this happens and what if this happens? And it's all negative. It's never the positive stuff, right? And then you come back to your reality, right? And it's like paralysis by analysis, and I'm just not going to do anything.
That can happen. I like to go through that exercise and envision the worst case scenario and then realize like everything's still okay. The sun still comes up. I'm still healthy. I still have air in my lungs.
Still not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. And Jake, I think I think that practice makes perfect, and practicing having this conversation. There's been training. Dan Kennedy used to train chiropractors to practice their closed pitch in the mirror, right? Like, so you don't even need to have anything fancy. Like, just practice what you're going to say, and you'll be amazed. Like when you put it out there, people are going to be like, oh, okay, And listen, if they have an objection, they're like, well, what if I don't want to work with you? What if I find something on my own? What if this? What if that? What if? Cool. Listen, I'll give you a cancellation guarantee. You can fire me if you don't feel like I'm earning my keep, right? And so you have a piece of paper that says, now you get all the benefit and none of the risk.
Reason to act now.
Reason to act now. Yeah. Sales is we were talking about this earlier. Sales is explaining the benefits of reason to buy. Closing is giving them reason to act now. Maybe
I love it.
Is it too much? Should I not share that? Share those type of things?
You should share all the things.
All right, fair enough. Not according to me. Yeah. Like,
all right. You got anything else on this topic? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I just think again, just to recap, look internally at the resources that you have as far as how to change the outcome instead of externally kind of being a victim or just being a victim. I think definitely make sure that you have some type of buyer's presentation that explains the benefits of doing business with you as far as buy side representing the buyer is concerned, and make sure that you have those buyer's agency agreements ready at hand to have your buyer sign. And then I think lastly, look at the market again, see what's going on, see the transactions that are occurring, and create a strategy around the seller side so that you can generate listing leads or listings, right? Obviously the leads are the thing that bring you listings, but do all those things, right? To change the outcome if you don't like where you're at currently. And if you do like where you're at currently, then get off the show. I'm joking.
And if you have whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, Spotify, podcasts, whatever you're listening to this on, if you need it, I would go back a few episodes and listen to when we were discussing how to get your offers accepted and some little tips and tricks on how to get offers accepted, because it is a competitive world, and that's probably one of the biggest points of frustration I've heard from agents across the country the last few weeks, months, really. So
yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because we're people, and we hate to see our customer disappointed. You know what I mean? But see it for what it is, not worse than what it is. And if you want help with your strategy as far as finding sellers, finding buyers, go to marketmakercall.com, check out how we do these things for you, help you with these things, generate leads, nurture the lead in a way that builds the authority, your authority in the mind of the lead. Take me a minute here, Jake. It's been a minute since I've given that spiel. I was listening to it the other day. And ultimately delivers it to your calendar as an appointment, marketmakercall.com. Go check it out.
Awesome. All right. As we always say here at Market Maker, you are always just one pre-position appointment away.